you see these people too, they only have a couple hundreds in their wallet. So then you start seeing them shell out 20s. And then you know it's getting real bad when the 10s start coming out and the 5s start coming out. It's like, dude.
Casino trip, full of chips. Wanna flip, double it.
Welcome to the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose, where the stakes are high, the takes are bold, and the conversations are always full of chips. With your hosts, Chris the Dice Degen and Craig from Old Bay Craps, you're tuned in to Full of Chips, the podcast where we dive into our experiences gambling and stories straight from the casino floor. Whether you're a seasoned pro at the craps table or just curious what the buzz is about, you're in the right place. Each week, we break down the games, talk to the experts, and bring you tips that could tilt the odds in your favor. So grab your lucky charm, stack your chips, and let's roll into today's episode. What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose. We are happy to have you in for episode 4. Chris the Dice Degen here with my co-host Craig from Old Bay Craps. Craig, how we doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing great, man. This is the 4th episode. We are 4 in. I mean, that's called establishing yourself. Isn't it like anytime you watch like a new television show, they tell you got to at least watch the first 4 episodes before you're hooked? That's how I feel about this. I'm hooked. You're hooked. We're in it together. We're going full force. Here we go.
Let's do it. I don't know though. Sometimes with those shows and stuff, I can't get past the first episode.
Well, let's hope the listeners can get past episode 1.
Yeah, let's hope. But I don't know. I think we're a little more entertaining than some of these shows. It's just I don't like slow build up and stuff. I don't know. I like to be like you gotta hook me in, and I think we hook some people in, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe some
I
people
hope
will
so.
tell us in the chat or in the comments that we're fishermen. We're just casting our hooks and reeling them in. But
That's right,
we'll see
man.
what happens. So how you been doing? How you been doing since episode 3?
Episode 3, I'm loving, episode 1 finally aired last Monday, and it's been such a fun ride seeing all the views. And we really appreciate all the feedback that we have gotten so far from a lot of the viewers. Whatever platform you're on, whatever platform you listen to this, it's amazing. Thank you so much. We've almost hit 100 views on just episode 1, which most, new podcasts right out of the gate don't really do that. So, we're very happy about that. And again, anytime you want to give some feedback, please comment to the videos. But also, if you want to send us a question, please do so at fullofchipspodcast@gmail.com. That's a really big help for us. But we are here for you, and we are here for a great subject tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. This subject might ruffle some feathers, but I guess we'll find out, right? I think it's a very important gambling topic. Before we get into that, though, I saw you just take a sip. What are we drinking tonight, Craig?
We had beer earlier today, so we are drinking a cup of Joe, some black coffee.
There you go, black coffee. I feel like I might need some of that, but
You got to balance it out.
at this hour, if I was drinking some coffee, it'd probably be like some kind of espresso. I don't know. Someone's gonna tell me some shit in the comments. Here you go. I'd probably be drinking an espresso martini, and someone's gonna be like, "Ooh, little white girl." Yeah, miss me with that.
Well, you had the Fresca, so what did you switch to for tonight?
Today I have a little bit of Four Roses and Diet Coke.
I love it. I love it. Last week I picked number 2 from the list. This week you're picking your number 1 from our top 5 liquors. Awesome.
Yep. The fiance's out. She's doing whatever she's doing. So old Degen over here is just, having a great old time being a bachelor in the Degen dungeon. It's great.
So we've talked a couple of times in the previous episodes about a lot of stuff that it seems like everything we talk about always seems to lead to our subject of the next episode. So I don't think this one is going to be any different. But, Chris, I got to tell you, I'm disciplined.
You think you're disciplined?
I think I'm disciplined.
I don't know. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find
Yeah.
out if Mr. Old Bay Craps is disciplined, and I guess maybe we'll find out if the folks at home are disciplined too.
Yeah. And you know what? They can tell us in the comments if they are, and then we'll be happy to retort back.
Yeah, no, right? Actually, I would love it if people would do this. I don't know if they will or not, but before we start chit chatting about discipline, comment down below if you think you are disciplined, and then You can comment back to your comment, good old reply, and tell us why you're disciplined. Just got to
So,
hear us out first.
exactly. But what is discipline? When we say be disciplined at the casino, what are we talking about? What does that mean? You know, to us, it means showing up with a strategy, being self-aware of what you're doing, setting boundaries for yourself. And that could be boundaries, could be anything. It could be, any kind of boundary that you make sure that you stick to it. Even when the lights are flashing and the dice are rolling or the temptation hits, sticking to your guns, sticking to your boundaries, sticking to what you came, the plan, because we talked about this previously, the plan that you came up with before you walked through those doors and found that you were already a disadvantaged player.
Yep, there's the saying, with no plan, you're planning to fail, and that's the same thing, and that's discipline. Really comes down to, can you stick to your plan, or can you deviate in a certain manner from that plan that stays within the boundaries of discipline, and keeps you on track. If something's not working, you don't just go full degenerate and try to hit the home run. Swinging for the fence is not always the best idea.
No, you're right. It's not about being stiff or joyless at the casino, It's about owning your experience with intention.
So when you gave us a little synopsis there on like what discipline is. So when you think of discipline, right? Like what's the key word that really comes to your mind when you're thinking discipline?
Probably the number one keyword is control. Control.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have control of yourself when you walk through, control where you're going, your plan, control at the table. You just cashed in and got your chips. So now you have to control your rack. It includes bank management. You have to control where you're going, what you're doing, whatever table game you're playing, you have to stay in control.
100%. I completely agree. I think there's like the physical control, right? Like you said, the bankroll management, what kind of strategy do you have? We're not talking strategy to play at a specific game in the casino, just strategy overall approaching the casino. But I think another important aspect with the discipline is the emotional control part, right? You have to be able to control your emotions when you're at the casino, whether you're doing well, whether you're doing bad. Being disciplined has a lot to do with the emotional aspect of it, because the emotional can flow into the physical and get you really down a bad place very, very quickly.
Yep, you've talked about it before. Know your plan and stick to it, which is the number one thing Chris said in, I think, the last episode, possibly, maybe a previous one. You do not chase your losses. You have to be in
You can't.
control of what you're doing. If you lose a bet, it's a lost bet. It's the past. You have to control how you're going to use your money in the future.
Yep. Yeah, I like to almost have like, fish type mentality when I go to the casino, where like very short term memory on a lot of things. Now, do I store things that I've learned and like the experience, even that small experience? Of course, right? It's sitting in the subconscious, the back of my head. Thought, like you said, right? You lose a bet. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh man, I lost that bet, and like let that dictate what I do next and how I continue to play. Like, no, we lost a bet. All right, we move on. Maybe we'll win the next one, right? So you got to keep very short term memory almost on those kind of things. And I feel like that's a hard concept for a lot of people to really grasp, is that like they get stuck up on the losing part and not focus on, all right, what's next and how can we maybe win some of this back, as opposed to, well, I lost and now I need to win it all back right now.
Well, we talked about it last week. We broke it down. The first two rules of discipline really are planning and preparedness, right? When it comes to preparedness, we're talking about entering with limits, right? We're talking about your bankroll, your time, like you just said, your emotional energy. It's less a spontaneous spree and more of a styled mission, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be calculated when you do a lot of these things. And like, especially when you go to the casino, right? Like, I think I used the same example last time, the one battle in a long war, but it's really true, right? One casino session is not going to break you, hopefully, right? If you're playing with money that you really shouldn't be, then maybe. But one casino session, in essence, should not have a huge impact on you from a monetary standpoint, from a emotional standpoint, from a lot of different things, right? So even if you do lose that one session or you lose that one day, there's always next time, right? But you got to learn from what happened last time, apply that to what happened this time. Maybe you have to change some things that you did, right? You have to use some self reflection, go back, take a look at it. But that also helps you be more disciplined in the future.
Absolutely. And remember, we talked about being present. Chris just talked about sessions. Sessions are paced. Your breaks are built in. You have to build them in. When are you going to take a break from your session? How many sessions are you going to play in the entire day? Chris and I are very fortunate that when we go to AC Crew, we already know that we're breaking it up into probably 3 sessions in a day. There's a morning, what we call coffee run, and we'll get more into that into Atlantic City Craps Crew when we talk about that in Atlantic City. Then you would probably go to breakfast. Then you're going to have like a lunch session. And then after that, you're going to probably go to lunch, or some people go back to their rooms, take naps. Some people actually eat dinner early, and then we come down for that evening session, right? It's all paced out, all the sessions that we've already planned on playing so many sessions and having what Chris talked about a couple of episodes ago about envelopes. He's already come to the casino with his envelopes and his bankroll and how he wants it split up and how he's going to spend it and how he's not going to go over the one session and reach into his pocket for another session's buy-in. You just don't do that. You have to keep that in mind. You have to know when to walk away, which we just talked about that I didn't do back in April, right? You have to learn to walk away whether you're up or down. And that's what Chris alluded to earlier with the low bankroll.
Yeah. And you made a really good point there with kind of how we structure our days in Atlantic City, because I think that has a lot to do with discipline, time management, and knowing when to leave, right? So, obviously we go for the coffee run. Now, some of us are really early risers, right? You can find me, Craig, a few others at the tables at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sometimes even sooner, really depends on kind of how late we played the night before. But around that 9:30, 10 o'clock time frame, we're already expecting, all right, we know dinner or breakfast is, coming up, and it might be time to go hit breakfast. After breakfast, do we go to the casino? We might check it out, see what's going on, but we already know that breakfast is going to be at least an hour, hour and a half, right? We have that break built in to our session and the whole day plan. So like that morning session, right? We know there's a cap coming. Now, do we always leave at the exact same time? Definitely not. But we know a general time frame of when we're going to be leaving. Same thing with if you come a little bit later, right? Let's say I want to sleep in, get to the tables around 8 o'clock. Well, I know I have about 2.5 hours max, right? Before we're all going to hit breakfast and we're going to go hang out, debrief, chill, take a break from the table games. And not saying that, we force people to go to breakfast. If you don't want to stay at the tables, you can. But for us, we know, all right, put in a nice little solid shift there. Let's go get some food, relax for a bit, check out the tables afterwards. Maybe, like Craig said, go up to the room, take a nap, hang out, do whatever. That's another huge part of discipline is you don't always have to play, right? You don't have to, you're at a casino, you don't have to gamble. Now, if you're going to the casino to gamble and you're there for like a day, you still need your breaks and stuff, but you may be a little bit more willing to play more. When we go to Atlantic City for a couple days, a week, whatever it is, we know we don't have to play. And I'm totally fine with not playing. There's so many people who will say, DJ, you buying in? No, I'm good. I'll just sit and watch, chit chat, hang out, and have a good time, right? I can bullshit with the best of them, and I don't have to play.
Now, you mentioned it earlier about, after the session, what are you doing? You're debriefing. So one of the things you can do is you can keep records of your sessions. If you're playing craps, you can write down the rolls. You can then debrief after you're done. Even if you're by yourself, you just go back over your records. You record your wins and losses. You find out what you could have done at a certain point, what you should have done here, what you did do, how did it affect your bankroll? Where are you now in your bankroll? Was your buy-in large enough? Was your buy-in the right table limit for yourself for the kind of bets you wanted to make and the kind of bet progressions you wanted to do? You have to record all that, and you have to be mindful when you're at the casino to collect that data and then be reflective of it. Obviously celebrate the wins, right? You want to celebrate the wins. You don't want to hammer into your head how bad the bad sessions were. You just want to acknowledge that it was a bad session and then move on to your next session.
100%. And I touched on it last time with like tracking, my sessions and stuff. But every session is tracked for me personally. I know Craig tracks a lot of his sessions as well. But like I have an Excel spreadsheet on my phone that I will literally go in and let's say I'm playing at Harris. I'll literally, all right, Harris Saturday morning, got to the table. Start time is there, 7:30, whatever it is. Buy in, what I cashed out for, and then there's a notes section, right? And as soon as I call it up from the table, you'll see me go to my phone and I start typing in, right? And I'll type in whatever my ending bankroll is. Did I win or lose? That's pretty obvious. And then I'll write a few notes down maybe. And I may not write all the notes that I want to write, but I might write a few things down. And then later on, I'll go in and I'll write them down. And what I find that to be very helpful with is especially those extended trips, especially with discipline and things like that, right? If you don't use envelopes and you just bring a wad of cash, right? It's really tough to know how you're actually doing unless you want to sit there and count it out every single time, right? But if you do that, that can also lead to, not having the discipline that I'm going to be here for 3 days. Let me divide this bankroll at least into three. Uh, so I always keep track of that kind of stuff. I know exactly where I'm at any given time. And that's even if I'm playing craps, blackjack, sports bets, all that kind of stuff. It's all logged very, very quickly and simply, right? You don't need a complicated spreadsheet over here. You're not coding for NASA or some shit. Like you're just writing down what your results were from the session. So you know exactly where you were. And again, like Craig said, you have a good session, celebrate those wins, right? Reflect on that and okay, this is what I did well. This is what I didn't do well, but I did this better more often than not that allowed me to have that winning session. Look for those opportunities in the future to do well and continue to do well.
No, and one of the things that I do and I take to the casino is I take a notebook ever since I went to I think it was either the first or the second Craps for the Cure that I went to, where they gave out notebooks, and I use it to log rolls. I also, you got to take a pen, a notebook, and on your envelopes, like I keep track of where the session went, whether it was up or down, I put in what's there, and then that envelope goes back into your safe in your hotel room, and you grab the next envelope to play the next session. Unless some people have an envelope that lasts for the however many sessions you're doing in that day, but you have to be careful if you do that because you don't want to go into your buy-in from your first session. Discipline at the casino is something that you build into your core of gambling. You're learning to resist impulse and you channel intention. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. What's your intent? What's your intent when you go to the casino? We talked about a little bit about it last week, didn't we, Chris? We talked about, are you there to win? Are you there to socialize? If you're there to socialize, you're probably not worried about where your money goes because you're not there to win. If you're there to win, again, you want to track it. You want to keep tabs of it. You want to make sure you have your envelopes broken down. That's discipline. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through experience.
Yep. I think you hit an interesting point there too with the social aspect of it. Because there's a whole level of discipline when it comes to the social aspect that I think a lot of people may not realize and don't understand that like it's almost a completely different game when you're there to be social as opposed to playing to win, right? Obviously, your goal should be to play to win whenever you go. But if you're having a more social uh, casino experience and you're going there to chit chat, bullshit, whatever it is, well, you may have to factor that into your planning, right? You may not be able to play certain systems, certain strategies. You may have to go very, very basic with what you're doing because if you're there to talk, talking can be very, very distracting, right? You can get lost on bet progressions if you don't know them well enough. You can, miss things because you're too in your conversation that's going on with whoever it may be. So it's a very different type of discipline and outlook almost if you know you're going for the social aspect, right? If I'm going to be social, my bet and my bet leveling, very, very simple. Like you would be like, I mean, what is this guy doing? Like it's so simple that you could wake me up at any time from a dead sleep and I could tell you what it is just because I don't have to think. Right? If I know I'm going to be talking, I just sit there, press it. Okay? I'm collecting that one. Cool. And it's very, very easy. Dealers love it because it's really easy on the dealers. And I'm not hard on the dealers usually with my bet progressions and other stuff, but
Yeah.
there can be some convoluted type of bets in there just because that's what happens sometimes.
And before we get into, ways you can cultivate discipline and some strategy you can start doing now, I want to tell you a little bit about something that I do at work that I have actually equated to doing in craps specifically. And that is when I'm at work, and this is when we actually used to work in a cubicle setting because we're remote now. But, when we would do a lot of typing, right? Because we're processing. So if I'm typing and I keep my left hand on the keyboard when somebody interrupts me to talk to me, right? When I come back around, because my hand is on the keyboard still, my brain tells me right where I left off. So I do the same thing in craps. I'm in front of my rail and I keep my left hand on the left side of my rack where my chips are. And if I get distracted by a drink lady or I get distracted by another player, I'll turn. But when I turn back around, because my hand is down here, my brain tells me right where I left off and if I should be pressing or regressing. So just a little
It's a good
tip.
tip.
You may want to try it out. It worked for me, and that's only because I brought my work experience into my craps experience. So, I thought it works for me at work. Maybe it'll work here at the casino, and it actually does. I don't lose track of thought. Focus is very important when it comes to discipline. So, Chris, what are some ways, whether you're playing casually or strategically, what separates you as a savvy player from being a thrill seeker?
So I think it comes down to a lot of what we said a little bit last week, and it flows into the discipline aspect of it is having a plan when I go in and sticking to that plan, not necessarily to a T, but keeping it very, very close to that exact plan and not letting things throw me off and get me off plan. Right. I think this has, you brought in work, right? I think my job has a lot to do with how I am and how I structure things. Because, I manage, I'm not going to say what I do, but I manage things. Okay. And I maintain a lot of trackers and I have a lot of um, management experience, let's say, right? So by doing that, it helps me when I go to the casino. It's very transferable that, okay, if I'm doing something at work, I know A needs to be done, B needs to be done, C needs to be done. May not know the order A, B, or C, but it's got to get done, right? When I go to the casino, I know, all right, I got to do this, got to do that, and bang, leave, right? C is always leaving because that's an important part that a lot of people I feel like leave out. But having that type of mentality when you go in is definitely very beneficial that a lot of people lack. And the casual players, there is no plan, right? Their plan, they're going to tell you, is to win.
The thrill
How are
seekers
you going
come
to do
down
that?
from their hotel room. They come and they drop $1,000. They put it all in the don't on in craps. They lose it. They break out their wallet. They throw down another $1,000. They do the same thing again. They lose it. Now they're doing, what are they doing? They're chasing their losses, right? So now they break out and they're putting 2 grand down the table, and they're playing the same thing without reading what's happening at the table. They're just blindly. The same thing happened to me. I was just told the story about Atlantic City over the 4th of July weekend. I'm sitting there with a $300 bankroll and I'm up about 150, and it's only me and this other guy, and he gets his bets up to playing 1,000 for a hand. He loses it. He did it 5 times, Chris. 5 times, 5 grand that he blew in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I mean,
I don't believe
you
it.
you have to be wise about the games you choose. You have to be wise about setting clear win goals or loss limits. We've talked about a little bit about a stop loss. And then you decide when to walk away, like Chris just said. Part of that is you have to master your bankroll management. You have to set a strict budget if you want. Break it into betting units like we talked about, your envelopes. Never mix gambling money with daily expenses. We touched on it a little bit in some other episodes when we talked about setting aside cash for food and drink. You don't want that to be part of your bankroll. A lot of people who are more savvy players, like I would say Chris and I are savvy players, and that we've been playing long enough. We're getting the comp rooms. We're not paying for that. We're barely paying for food because of rewards points or something. But we have separate bankrolls for food and drink. We have separate bankroll for the table. And within the table, again, we mentioned this in another episode, if we're playing the prop bets and craps, we have a separate, smaller bankroll for that too. You have to plan that out. Nobody goes in with what Chris was talking about earlier about somebody just dumping a thing of cash, crumpled $1 or $100 bills on the table with no plan. And that they're just getting their chips and they're just doing stacked bets on the don't, stacked bets in the field, especially. We see it all the time. You never see
Merchants.
somebody do a stacked bet on a 6-8, right? You see them
No,
do it
never.
right on it's the one roll bets in craps, for
Yep.
and for blackjack, and they don't know basic strategy. They're not card counting at all. They just go in and they buy in and they put 1,000 for a hand. And then when the dealer has 21 and they have 20, who's walking away pissed? The guy that had no plan and just dumped money on the table with no set budget, nothing.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. It's actually funny. I have two quick stories. One is from let's call it close family friend, family member, whatever you want to call him. But he used to be a gambler, right? And he's not anymore for a variety of reasons. But what he used to do was when he went down to like Atlantic City for the day or something, right? He was telling me this story, and I was like, that's bold. And again, there's some discipline in here, but there's a huge lack of discipline, right? So what he used to do was he would take $20 out of his buy-in and put it on the visor of his car, right? Gas and tolls to get home because no discipline when he went to the casino to potentially lose everything that he's buying in with. So he would store $20 in the now again, this is years ago where you could actually get somewhere with $20. Now you can't even buy a bag of peanuts for $20, but that's beside the
Well,
point. But yeah, gas and tolls, $20. Put it in the visor just so he could actually get home.
I do the same thing, Chris. I put $20 in the visor because of the tolls, and I make sure that if I do lose everything at the casino, I can still get home. You want to make sure you can still get home, right?
Yeah.
But
You know what's funny? Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny. So I actually do this kind of now to this point, which is funny. So before I drive down to Atlantic City, right, I always gas my car up on my when I'm leaving my house. I always gas my car, right? Or I'll gas it up as soon as I get in New Jersey because New Jersey has better gas prices than Pennsylvania does, right? So my tank when I get to Atlantic City, pretty close to full, if not three quarters, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'm getting home, right? Got the easy pass. I don't have to worry about tolls necessarily, right? But it's almost like I never thought of it that way until like now. Almost like I make sure when I get there, there's a full tank of gas in the car, just about. And Easy Pass makes it nice and easy because I don't have to worry about stopping and paying for the tolls or whatever. But I mean that's some people have different things that they like to do, but again, it comes down to discipline, right? If you're disciplined enough to set that aside, good. But you should be more disciplined to not lose everything that's going to make you not be able to get home, right? Unless again you have the ability to get rooms and other stuff. But like even then, you still lost all your money.
You did. And what does that lead to for people that don't plan? It leads to being emotionally not grounded, right?
No, exactly.
We've already talked about don't chase your losses. We've talked about you got to take breaks for your mindset. But one of the other things that people can do is, just to be mindfulness is have breathing techniques or, you know, teach yourself some techniques to stay cool under pressure.
Yep.
If you just kind of a bit, let's say, you just pressed up your bets in a 7 rolls and craps and you just lost $200-300, but you still have plenty of buy-in to keep playing. Take a step back from the table, even turn away from the table if you have to, and shake it off.
Yeah, so the breathing techniques are really good. It's actually funny. Last night I was watching the Happy Gilmore 2, which refers back to my top 5 list from before. But Happy Gilmore has a happy place that he goes to, right? To be able to, focus on the shots and stuff. So like breathing techniques, things like that, but have like a happy place or something that helps you get almost zen when you're playing, because there can be a huge emotional roller coaster that goes on when you're at the tables, right? So knowing how to manage that, and it's going to be different for every single person, right? If breathing and, centering yourself is not for you, maybe you have something else that gets you back in, your even keeled state of mind, because that's really where you want to be. You don't want to be riding the lows and you don't want to be riding the highs. Now, can riding the highs be fun? Sure. The crash down from the highs is brutal, right?
Now, you know what? One of the things that we're going to get into right now is we talked about pressure, we talked about keeping emotionally grounded. Limit your distractions. Choose a focused environment, whether it's a quiet corner of the casino or some kind of eatery that maybe is just really quiet, to just cool down, keep focused. When you're at the table, don't multitask. Like if you're playing a strategy and you have to press a certain time, you have to keep track of your rolls. Like Chris, he's, I think, maybe described before, we'll get into, he uses the chip rail to know when he has to press up his bets, because he puts chips across his rack, 6 chips for the box numbers. And when a box number hits, he flips his coin over or his chip over, and he'll add to it. And if he gets to 5 rolls of a 4, he'll go from a white chip to a red chip. But he does that so he keeps track of how many times things are rolling. And I guarantee you, if he was not focused and he was distracted by either the drink person, angry players who are arguing with people, he would lose where he was. And now he doesn't know where to press his bets. Or if he just pressed his bets, because maybe he meant to collect first and then press. Now he's lost. So you got to keep that focus. Don't that's not a good time to multitask, is at the casino, okay? You can try multitasking at work, and it does work a lot. I think, Chris, you'll agree. But at the casino, multitasking for me is pressing my bet and taking a sip of my drink. That's about as multitasking as I want to get.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like you said before, right? With you use your left hand to keep track of where you are, things like that. Like the chip rail, especially on the craps table, is such an easy way to like follow where you're going, right? And shout out to Grandpa and Dice Coach for the way I do it. But yeah, like even if I'm playing that very easy system that I'm talking about, right? And like I'm sitting there chit chatting, like sometimes I'm only playing 2 numbers, right? So like it may be a while before they roll. I use chips there too to know when I'm supposed to press, when I'm supposed to hit. I'll put a chip in the rail and be like, all right, the next one's a press. Or I'll take the money that I need to press and drop it and have it in the rail, because I know next hit, oh, money's already counted out. Here it is. That's for the power press or for whatever it is, right? So like there's little techniques you can use for that kind of stuff too, to keep you centered on that and not distracted, because being distracted in casino is a very, very bad way to play in reality, right? If you're on the blackjack table, I'll do it sometimes too, where like I'll use chips to like denote where I am in a progression. Or if I've gotten beat a bunch of times in a row, I'll keep track of how many I've got beat. Or if I'm winning, usually I can tell you how many hands I've won by my bet leveling. Sometimes it gets skewed with doubles and splits and other stuff because I deviate a little bit when it comes to those. But like I could look down at what I have as my bet and I could tell you exactly how many hands in a row that I've won, because that's how I play, right? But again, it comes back to discipline, bankroll management, all those kind of things, and experience from learning from the times that I have played.
I've done the same thing with blackjack. As long as you're keeping track, you kind of know where you are, especially in card counting. Obviously, you got to keep track. If you don't keep track, you can't count. You can't count cards.
And you can't be
You can do,
distracted for that.
and basic strategy will keep you in the game. It will, but it won't. It can't fight variance all the time. I mean, like you were talking about, if you're keeping track of the hands and how you're winning or losing each hand. So when I was in Atlantic City, when I was playing blackjack, one of the tables I dropped down to, the dealer won 6 hands in a row, and I said, "Are you serious?" 6 hands in a row. I said, I'm sorry. And I colored up. I said, color me up. And I went to a different table. Like it was just, in craps, we're very good at recognizing negative energy, right? So to me, that felt like negative energy at a blackjack table. No dealer should win 6 straight hands, but it happens. But if it makes you uncomfortable or your gut feeling says, you know what, I should pick a different table, do it. Do it. You
Discipline,
know,
though, right? That's
otherwise,
what it comes back to.
otherwise the dealer's going to what? They might win 8, 10 straight hands. Now what? You should have left. You knew you should have left 4 hands ago. Your gut was telling you get up and go and color up, and you didn't. You know, we talked about discipline and what it means and how to go about it at the table. What are some things we could do after your casino experience, after you've done a session? We said the word debrief, but what does that really mean to you, Chris?
So for me, again, it goes back to writing my notes from my session, right? That's all like personal, internal. I keep those on the side. But if you have the ability to play with people, that and stuff, talk about it, right? Figure out, maybe what they did. Did it work for them? Did it not work for them? What did you do? And you really have to self-reflect on what worked and what didn't work, right? If you're playing craps, you were betting certain numbers, those numbers weren't rolling. Why did you keep betting those numbers, right? What led to that decision? If you're playing blackjack and you lost 10 hands in a row, why are you still playing? Oh, I'm going to win the 11th hand. All right, fine. If you were playing, did you level up your bets at all? Why did you do that, right? Did you keep them at base? Why did you do that, right? So, like, focus on what went well, what didn't go well, and use that as data for next time, right? Not every session is going to be the same. We all know that. But each experience that you have when you're playing different games or just watching and observing at the casino can give you data to use for your future sessions, right? Craig will tell you, we shared this example before. Craig knows when I start rolling horns, you better bet the damn horn. Why? Because he's played with me enough to know that if I'm rolling horns, they're probably going to keep going, right? Or they may not happen consecutively, but there's a good chance that if I'm throwing them, they're going to keep coming, right? So you should do something to adapt off that. Again, craps, easy example here, right? If Craig's betting the 6 and 8 and I'm throwing horns, he's not getting paid on the 6 and 8, right? And if after the session, Craig's sitting there like, okay, I could have, bet the field or bet some horns or did something other than just being stubborn and keeping my bets on like the 6 and the 8 or whatever you're betting, right? So focus on what personally speaking, I focus on what I did poorly, right? For me, what I did well, it's all great and wonderful. It helped me maybe win or it helped me get back to even, but I want to know what got me to the point where I was making errors and what didn't work well for me, right? That's what I think about a debrief. Nice conversation. And again, not saying if it's me personally, I just think and I write and then I think some more, analyze what happened. But like if you're playing with a group or you're playing with some people, great conversation and really talk about what happened. You could even talk about some things that may have changed table energy, right? And then focus on it from there. What happened? Were you up before that? Were you down? Like what happened that ultimately made the session end the way it did?
No, you're absolutely right. You're talking about analyzing what worked and what didn't work. When we're talking about craps, and we keep bringing up craps and blackjack because these are the 2 main games that Chris and I play. He will certainly, and I know he already tracks all his analysis and data on sports betting, which we talked about last week. I know he does that. So the examples, I'm not a sports bettor, so I can't bring those examples like he can. But for craps, it's knowing what rolled, what didn't roll, why did you stay on a number if somebody is hitting 5s and 9s and you kept your bets on 6s and 8s because somebody told you to? Why? You didn't analyze the table. I talked a little bit briefly last week when we were talking about planning that not many people go to a craps table and just watch a whole round of people playing. You get so much information about the different players that you're going to be playing and sharing the table with and what's been rolling numbers wise. So you have to analyze that, what worked, what didn't work, and then be flexible. Discipline doesn't mean rigidity. Rigidity? Is rigidity a word? Is that a word? It is a word, I think, but it doesn't mean you have to be rigid with it. Discipline, it means intentionality. We talked about it earlier. What are your intentions? What are your intentions before you go to the casino? And what are your intentions once you're at the favorite game that you decided to play? You have to figure that out for yourself. And those are some ways that you can review and adjust to your discipline. Experience, like I said last week, experience will breed confidence. When you're confident, you're less hesitant. When you're less hesitant, you're not knowing where you want to put your bet. You know where you want to put your bet. You know how you want to progress. Is there anything else, besides going into how you can get help with discipline? Is there anything individually anymore that you wanted to add, Chris?
No, I think we touched on a lot of things. I mean, again, it's a discipline and like how you deal with things very, very individualized based on the person, right? What works for me may not work for Craig. What works for both of us may not work for you. So like find what works, right? And it's a learning process in that of itself, right? For me, it's I take a break, I relax a little bit, maybe go get some food, do something, go up to the room, like change my environment. Again, reflect, but I'm doing something actively and changing what wasn't working, what wasn't going well, if it wasn't going well. And same thing if I win, right? If I win, I'm more hesitant to go back to the table because I want to give it back to right? So I may go do something else. Um, you know, fiance is there, she wants to go shopping, whatever. I'll walk around the stores, whatever, right? But like something different. But yeah, like again, you have to find what works for you personally. And so if it's like Craig said, those breathing techniques, taking a break, if you have an outlet that you like, go do that. I know some people, I don't know, I find this kind of strange, but some people do it where like they have like comedian skits that they look up and like they start laughing and like that's what works for them. I have a buddy who does it and I think it's strange, but like again, it works for him. It wouldn't work for me because like I'd be like, yeah, I'm just watching something, right? Like I'll scroll through the socials, like I just I need to remove myself from the game. That's how I like to, reinforce my own discipline is by actually walking away, right? We've talked about the time, the walking away, but like for me, not being around the tables really helps me center myself again. I think, all right, when I go back, what am I going to do differently? What did I learn from before? Have I had past experiences I can draw on to help me, you know, maybe make more informed decisions, things like that. But I don't know. For me personally, it's just walking away.
And one of the other things that you can do, and you're seeing it right here, engage with a community that also plays similar games that you play. Why? Because you can join forums, you can ask questions to people, you can share your strategies, you can see their strategies, you can share your experience. Hearing someone else's loss is helpful because you're engaged in, hey, I did the same thing and it didn't work out. How did you change what you do? That's great stuff. And, again, I mentioned engaging in a community. Chris and I, again, and we've said this before, and it's kind of our phrase to these podcast episodes is we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We are going to get to being in a craps crew because it's exactly what I'm talking about here that will help you with your discipline is hearing others talk about the same experiences that you may have experienced with either losing an entire bankroll, having a high winning session and what to do afterwards. What do I do with it? I just won $5,000 at the table. I don't know what to do now. Yep. Discipline's going to help you decide what you're going to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely joining like the communities are really great because you learn a lot from them, right? I mean, you and I have both taken so much from, the craps community from a variety of different individuals. Even, there's huge blackjack, roulette, baccarat presences in these communities. So like join one of them, find out what they do, find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, that kind of stuff. But ultimately, right, you got to find out what works for you and it's going to be trial and error. So don't think your first thought of, oh, this is going to work great for me is going to work for this. But if you're maybe new or you're struggling with, how do I maybe refocus? How do I center myself? How do I become more disciplined? think about something that you do regularly or you've been doing for a long time. What helps you discipline yourself for that, right? Maybe you can translate that into the casino, or you can translate some facet of it into the casino, right? For me, I go to the gym pretty much every morning, right? 5 o'clock, alarm goes off, I'm out the door, going to the gym. I do it when I'm at the casino, when I'm for a trip and stuff. You'll see me in the gym, right? Because it helps me to center myself. It puts me in a good state of mind, and it gets me, into normalcy almost, right? Because you can get out of normalcy very, very quickly on some of these trips and stuff. And, you have to be able to, find your sense of normal. So for me, the gym is a huge part of what my everyday looks like. So I go to, the gyms when I'm in Atlantic City, when I'm in Vegas, whatever it is, go to the gym. That helps me out. Sometimes you'll see me there twice. Why? Well, something happened at the tables. I didn't like it. I need to, chill out and zen out. Go to the gym. Why? Because that's something that works for me.
Because if it doesn't work for you and discipline isn't your thing, then A, you're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be near a casino at all because you don't want your discipline to end you up in some clubs. You know of any clubs, Chris, that not having discipline is going to lead you to?
Uh, the few, but like, the homeless one potentially, the don't drop the soap one. I mean, there's quite a few, but Craig, I think you might have some better ideas than I do on that one.
Well, I think what I'm getting to or what I'm thinking of is our top 5 for today. Reasons you belong in the Lucky Losers Club. This is
There
for
you go.
people who do not have discipline. And as
Lucky
always, Chris and
loser.
I will rank them 5 down to 1. Again, if we have the similar one, you'll know it. And please comment about it. Please comment that every time we have a top 5 that you want to think Chris and I know what each other's lists are and we don't. We have no idea. We only know the topic.
Yeah, no, we do only know the topic. But yeah, also, while we're talking about it, if we miss something that you think could make somebody a quote unquote loser, can be harsh, but hey, it's fair, honestly. Let us know down in the comments. So Craig, number 5.
So all of my 5 are funny.
Uh,
I wanted to put a little bit of the comedic part of it in it. So my number 5 is your poker face includes emotional monologues. You once gave a heartfelt speech mid-hand about why your cards deserve better, and everyone applauded.
Oh my God, that's great. I love that one. All right, I guess we won't have many similarities here because mine are not funny. Mine are just you're a loser. That's what mine are basically. But my number 5 is people who don't learn from mistakes. You don't learn from your mistakes, you're bound to repeat them again. You continue to repeat them, you're going to be a loser. It's just how it is. Sorry. And I'm really not sorry, but telling you how it is.
There you
All right,
go.
number 4.
Number 4, you celebrate your losses with more style than wins. Confetti cannon for busting twice in a row? Yes, please. Losing never looked so legendary.
Oh my God. I'd actually have to be there for somebody to do that, I think. Like now I want to see somebody like just celebrate losses left and right. I actually have seen people do it where like they're so happy that they lost and I'm like, the hell is wrong with you?
How many times, Chris, have you been at a table where somebody's just shelling out and losing thousands of dollars, and all you want them to do is just turn to you and hand you the $1,000 that they would have played and lost for the third time?
Tell me about it. Or you know what I find even worse than that is the people who keep doing that and then have like one big win and they're like, I won. I'm like, you're still down and bad for the session, right? Side note from the top 5. I was playing with a guy actually, Blackjack last week in my local, and he kept $100 bills, right? $100 bills kept coming out, kept coming out, kept coming out. This guy probably bought in 7 times on one shoe, right? And then he kept buying in as we played. I was there for a few hours. I only played for maybe an hour, but I was there for a few hours. Anyway, I'm sitting with this guy for 3 full shoes. Okay. And he bought in multiple times, multiple times. I want to say he was probably in for 1,500, maybe 1,800. I lost count after a while of how
Uh,
many times he bought in. right? Finally, he's got a $300 hand that he has to double on. And he wins. He's smacking the table. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, dude, you're still down. And down significantly. And caveat to that, the hand that he had to double on, that was everything he had left in front of him was to double.
Oh,
So, like, if you would have lost that, you would have been in a real shit spot. But you're so thrilled with yourself that you won that double down. And I'm like, dude, you're still down so bad. Like, again, yeah, you got a small win. Is it great to focus on small wins? Sure. But like having that huge boost of like emotions that you won, when you cash out and you check your wallet, you're still going to know that you lost.
yeah. Yeah.
Kind of goes into
Definitely.
number 4 for me. Loser, somebody who can't manage the bankroll. That guy is
100%.
a loser. Keeps buying in, keeps buying in, keeps buying in. If that is your premonition when you're at the casino, I'm sorry, you're a loser. You buy in once, right? That's it. Okay? Stop putting money out on the table. Now, I'm not saying that you can't put more money on the table for certain reasons, right? Craig, you've seen me do it. People have seen me do it where I have to place a bet in order to maximize my winnings on both sides, right? For example, with the all tall small, I may lay the last number if I'm fortunate enough to be able to. So like you may see me shell out more money just so I can cover the lay. But like stop doing the $100 bullshit where you buy in for 100 and then like you lose it and you keep buying in for another 100, another 100, another 100. Why not just set yourself a couple $100? If you lose it, you're gonna walk away. Well, you don't have discipline, you're a loser.
Where have you seen that the most? You've seen people just 100 in the field, lose. 200 in the field, lose. 100 in the field, lose. Dude, they're hitting sixes and eights. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and then 7 field bets later, they finally hit one for 200. Like, yes. What
But
happened
they
to the?
they hit the aces or 12 until they triple it, right?
Oh yeah. That's
They're
the
like, you
best
see
when they
that?
hit
You
that.
see that? Yeah, you're still down.
That and the horn gets me all the time too. There's a couple guys who we've played with, and I know you've seen them and stuff, right? Where it's just nonstop, like quarters being thrown to the horn and hard ways, and like they just keep buying in, buying and buying until finally somebody throws a horn, and it's like, oh my god, I got $400 coming to me. In the past 20 minutes, you shut out 600, first of all, and I know you. That 400 is going to be gone in like 8 to 10 rolls. Why? Unless somebody hits a horn, that money is gone. And more often than not, it usually is. And then you see them buying in again and buying in again. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, you were just celebrating that $400 win. Why didn't you change what you were doing or walk away being down only maybe a couple hundred instead of now you're down a few thousand?
But it's worse in craps because it really stops the flow of the game.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If it's blackjack, it's not as bad because it's pretty quick and it's very, quaint setting. So you don't really have to wait long. But at a craps table, I mean, they really just draw it out when they draw out the cash and they put the highlighter on it and they're talking to the
Yeah.
boss and the boss doesn't hear them and the boss is all the way over at a baccarat game and he's got to walk half the distance to the casino all the way to come over just to verify $100. Like,
Yeah.
really?
And then you see these people too, they only have a couple hundreds in their wallet. So then you start seeing them shell out 20s. And then it's getting real bad when the 10s start coming out and the 5s start coming out. It's like, dude,
Yeah. So this list
uh,
is kind of, I was thinking of Dave Letterman when I wrote this. All right.
you're killing it. So keep going. Number 3.
Number 3, you tip the dealer after a bust out of respect. Not for the win, just for the vibe. That's called class.
I'm guilty of that one.
I think we all
I'm
are
a
because
loser.
well, you
I'm
feel
a
bad.
loser.
You feel bad because you're like, oh, I'm going to tip the dealer at the end. And, you had the
Yeah.
intention of going up $200 and let's say it was 225 and you're like, yeah, I'm going to tip him that quarter. And then you're down $100 and you're like, okay, I've got nothing. Like, don't reach into your wallet to give them a 5 to make them do the highlighter just so that the 5 is their tip, which they
Yeah,
can't touch.
exactly. No, yeah, it's true. I mean, so it's funny. You don't know how many sessions I've had that I've actually the dealers have made more than I have because I'm a pretty generous player, right? The dealers are always playing with me. I always have them up on bets. So like, there's times where like the dealers have made significantly more than I have in a session just because I'm either even or down a little bit. But the dealers are up, and like that's another thing that I'm sitting there like, should I be doing that as much? Because then that's a reflection point sometimes for me. But again, dealers make the experience. They can also break the experience. So it is what it is.
What's your number three?
My number three is someone who is very emotional and has very poor self-control.
Very
Because when
poor
you're
self-control.
yep, when you're in a bad mental state, or you're angry, or you're greedy, or you're frustrated, most of the time that leads to poor betting decisions.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know too many people who make good betting decisions when they're angry or when they're feeling greedy. They're usually not making good betting decisions. It's usually one way or the other way. You're making a shit decision, and it's going to cost you.
Absolutely.
Number
All
two.
right. My number two. Slot machines know your nickname. You call everyone baby and whisper sweet nothings to them, even when they ghost you.
Should just edit out mine and just have Craig's top five, because this is way better. But no, that's true. And I love watching people on the slot machine. Sometimes I'll do it, and this is another thing that I'll do sometimes. I'll just walk around the casino. Like if I need a break, I'll just walk around, and like watching some of these people on the slot machine, they're like rubbing it, and they're like, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's a machine. It's not your AI girlfriend, bro. Stop.
Well, we know one craps crew that shakes the tie leaf power for all, man.
Yes. Yes. It's true. It
But
does.
they get hand
All
paid.
right. My number two is someone who has zero knowledge of the game they're playing, zero understanding of what game they're playing, and is too stubborn or too stupid to learn what the game is before they go and play said game. If you do that, you are a loser, because you're probably going to lose unless you get very lucky. But most people aren't that lucky. Greg,
Absolutely. All
top
right.
spot for what makes you a loser. Drum roll, please, everybody.
Here we go. Your lucky charm is a used buffet coupon, and you swear it works. One time I got you a bonus round and half off crab dip.
All right, I think I'm just gonna clip all your top five. Um, that's a good one. All right, first time we have zero similarities. Mine is just basically everything we've talked about today. The loser is someone who has no discipline and doesn't know that they don't have discipline. They're not self-aware that they don't have discipline because, again, we've talked about it nonstop this entire episode about different aspects of discipline, what goes into it, all that kind of stuff. If you are lacking in those areas, probably makes you a loser, because without discipline, you will lose in the casino.
Nobody wants to be in the lucky losers club. I'm telling you,
Nobody
it's not
wants to be in
fun.
the lucky losers club. It's not. We'll give you a special little card that says "I'm a loser" with a fat L on it.
That's right. So,
All
Chris,
right.
we've talked about discipline ad nauseum, right? And you can't not talk about it enough. You have to have it. You cannot be a gambler or an advanced player and not have discipline. It's just got to be
100%.
part of something that's ingrained in you, right?
Yeah, and personally, I think being disciplined is even more important than knowing the damn games. Like, there's only so much you can learn about a game, right? Like, craps, there's only so many bets on the table, okay? You can learn strategies to play, all that kind of other stuff. But again, without discipline, you don't got it. So, being disciplined to me is like one of the number one things you need to learn before you even start gambling.
Speaking of gambling, I think it goes right into our tip for the episode.
It does. It does. So when you're gambling, all right, and you go to the casino, make sure you have your discipline, but be disciplined enough to know that you don't have to gamble as soon as you get there, right? That itch that you need to scratch, chill, relax. Okay? Doesn't need to be scratched immediately. All right? You don't have to gamble right away. Walk around, take in the sights. Going back to last episode, get your orientation points, right? Learn what's in the casino. Scout the restaurants maybe, so you know where you're going to go have your celebration dinner. Once you become disciplined, you start winning, and you're going to go have dinner. Learn that kind of stuff. Go grab a drink. Do something. Don't walk into the casino and be, I have to gamble. I'm buying in right away. Observe a little bit. Walk around a little bit, do something other than walk in and drop money on the table immediately.
You're absolutely right, Chris. We talked about when we started this podcast, we talked about how we got into the casino gaming. We then talked about can you handle the pressure? Then we talked about planning and preparing for going to the casino. And now we just talked about and expounded on the one of the biggest things of the four horsemen of the John Patrick. Not that we're emphasizing he's the way you need to go, but he had always had some good advice. And one of the major four horsemen of things is discipline. We will later down the road get into bankroll management and more about that bankroll management. We've mentioned a little bit about envelopes and stuff, but we mentioned it from a discipline standpoint that you have to have a plan with envelopes or how you want to do or what you want to do with your money when you get to the casino. But I thought it was a great episode, Chris. We really dove in, kind of like we did on episode 2 with pressure. It's just you have to talk about these things to get the message across, or people are going to go to the casinos and play blindly.
And that's the main thing, right? It was like it's almost the building blocks of, the pre-building before you go to the casino, right? Casino play, it's it's really not that important in the grand scheme of things, right? Yes, you win and lose, but how you are set up to go into the casino is super, super important. So that's why we're kind of hitting these topics early, discuss them. Obviously, we will keep touching on them throughout, and we may just, talk about it again if we have other ideas or other things that we want to touch on. But trying to present some building blocks here and, give a good understanding of what it really takes to be a seasoned player and an advantaged player in the casino, because you could be the pillars of what goes into being a good gambler. You're not going to be a good gambler. So we appreciate everybody watching again. If you guys wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, all that good stuff, we appreciate it. Drop your comments down below. You can send us any questions, feedback, whatever, FullofChipsPodcast@gmail.com. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some of the short clips and stuff on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. You can find us there. All the links are down below in the description, so go check them out. And Craig, appreciate you being here on episode 4 and episode 5. I think everybody is in for a treat, aren't they?
They are. Without saying what exactly it is, we are going to have our first guest. We are going to interview someone, and we are not telling anybody who. We are going to keep you all on your toes until next time. But I want to thank Chris. I want to thank him for all the editing he does. These are not easy to edit. You guys are just seeing the final product. You're not seeing the in-between coughing, the in-between sneezes, blowing nose. Have to walk away from the camera for a second, some audio issues here and there, but you're seeing the good final product, and we hope you really like it. And if you do, comment on the videos, please. Like Chris said, I really hope you're enjoying the shorts. They're so fun. They're quick. They give you a little taste of the episode, and hopefully you jump into the episode afterwards, because the episodes are really awesome. We just recorded our 4th one. We got our 5th one coming. We have a guest coming. You're going to love it. We're going to talk about maybe some things more than just craps and blackjack. It'll be fun, and we're going to learn a lot. And again, all these episodes are leading to other episodes, and we kind of like that process. We kind of like the way that we're mapping these out, and that sometimes the casual conversation in these podcast episodes, we think later like, that might be a good podcast for down the road. And that's what things are doing. Things are daisy chaining and leading one thing into another. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the love and support you've already shown us, all the views. We love it. Please click like and subscribe to Full of Chips podcast. Remember, these are the only chips you never lose.